Hello everyone and welcome to another very nice game you suggested I cover. It's from the 38th Open Untergrombach tournament that was played the past few days, and it's a game between Russian Grandmaster Vyacheslav Ikonnikov and Eline Roebers from Netherlands. Could be pronounced any other way, I guess, as Dutch names are always very difficult to pronounce, but I'm going with Roebers, and she's only 15 years old, but she won the tournament, so that's very impressive. Well, probably why you guys requested me to show it. And it's a really intense game. A lot of things could have gone very differently and very wrong for both of them, as you'll see, but it's a very enjoyable one. So without further ado, let's check it out and see how she managed to win this tournament. So here, Ikonnikov opens with d4. We have d5, c4, c6, knight to f3, and knight to f6. We have the Slav defense on the board, knight to c3 and e6, going for the semi-Slav defense. And now usually e3 is pretty standard here, but white goes for bishop, queen to b3. Now putting pressure on a little bit more pressure on d5, also putting pressure on b7, so black cannot develop this bishop for the moment. Here we have d captures on c4. Very principled decision, as you are trying to make white pay for developing the queen too early, so white has to waste some tempi here. Queen captures on c4 and now b5, further harassing the queen, queen d3, and now a6. Defending that b5 pawn, so you can advance this pawn to c5 and attack white's center. So here bishop to g5, nicely developing, and now usually just c5 is played here, but she first develops the light square bishop. We have bishop to b7, and now white grabs the center with e4. We have h6, bishop to h4, and only now c5, attacking white's strong center, and the position has been reached. Even this year it was reached in the Serbian team championship between Alexander Injicin and Hans Moke-Niemann, where d5 was played and black was able to win this game. But here we have e5, and it is now, as of move 11, that we have a completely new game. And let's see how e5 is different from d5. Well, for one, the knight cannot move. If the knight moves, you lose the queen, so is she just blundering a knight? Well, not really. g5, now if pawn captures knight, we have pawn captures bishop, so white just goes knight captures on g5, captures, and now you've temporarily sacrificed a piece, but you're going to win the knight back, so it's not a problem. Here we have c4, further attacking the queen. Here, queen to d2, and now knight b to d7. You can't save the knight, so you might as well continue development. We have e captures on f6, white wins the piece back, and now we have b4. You could play many different moves here, like you could capture on f6, but that looks a little bit weird, and it doesn't seem like black is all that interested in winning a pawn back. So here b4, attacking the knight, and already white is under a lot of pressure. Black king is also in the center of the board, but the white king is a bit more open, and here you have to play very precise moves, and knight to d1 seems to be the move you have to play here. But here knight to a4 was played, and this gives black, well, just many ways to continue this, one of them being the most straightforward one, and that is c3. So the queen is attacked, and you can't really capture here. Whoops, sorry about that. If you capture on c3, queen to a5, and what do you do here? You're attacking the knight. You can't really defend the knight. If you move the knight, then you lose control of c3. B captures on c3 will create a very strong pass pawn, and it's just a terrible position for white. So instead, after c3, we have queen to e3, and now knight to b6, offering a trade of knights here, which white should definitely accept, but instead white plays b3 here, and this is now, well, maybe a little bit too much, giving black a pass pawn on c3 already, but okay, knight captures on a4, b captures, and queen to b6 now. Developing the queen, also might be preparing queenside castles, so bishop to f4, as the d4 pawn will come under attack, so you want to play bishop to e5 to defend both of your pawns. And now we have rook to d8. Black could also castle queenside here, but she goes for rook to d8, and now we have bishop to e5. We have to defend our d4 pawn. b3 now, with the idea of well, just further activating this queen. So a captures on b3, queen captures on b3, and now bishop to d3. asking what do you want to do here. And it's a really interesting position where again many things are possible because it's such an open position. Both kings are in the center of the board, both players have the bishop pair, the queens are on the board. It's a very cool position. In the game, bishop to h6 was played. But just to give you an example of what the engine thinks is best, bishop captures on g2, runs into rook to g1, and now rook to h3. This is seemingly best for black, but again, it doesn't give black all that much. Queen to e2. Now you have to find c2 with the crazy idea that if queen captures on c2, you just go back queen to b7 and defend your bishop here, with black having a very comfortable game. And of course, if white captures with the bishop, well, then just bishop to b4 check, and white is dead lost. So there are some ideas with bishop captures on g2, but okay, bishop to h6 first attacks the queen. Now comes queen to g3. You could also block with f4. Vyacheslav decides to play queen to g3, and now what do you play here? Well, here Eline played king to d7, and it's such a tricky move to face over the board, especially if the time on the clock was low, and as I understand it, it was. By the way, I forgot to mention in the description there will be a link to a chess.com article by Peter Dodgers where he talks a little bit more about the tournament and what happened there, and a little bit more about Eline, so do check that out as well. So just again, to give you an example, if bishop to d2 check, and this seems like a move you really want to play, we're going to play king to e2. And now, how do you continue this? Well, it's very hard to find the move here for black unless you find bishop to f4. That's what you kind of have to play. And now there are some very impressive ideas here with queen b2 check, and not a lot of thing to do here. For example, if you play queen captures on f4, if you grab the bishop, we just play queen b2 check, and well, it's just a very bad position for white. So what you would have to do here after bishop to f4 is play rook to b1, and here we would have a queen trade, but this way, captures. We're going to play bishop captures on g3, h captures, bishop captures here, and now bishop captures on a6, and we finish this position with white being up a pawn, and it's a passed a pawn. So this will be definitely advantageous for white. So although it seems like the absolute best move, it doesn't give black all that much. So here she played king to d7, which leaves you a lot of options. You could hide the king on the queen side. You could bring this rook into the attack here. So it's a very tricky move, and definitely a move you don't want to see in time trouble. So here we have rook to b1. Now you have to be careful, otherwise you're going to lose the bishop. So queen d5 defends the bishop, and now f3. So you no longer have to worry about the weak g2 pawn. And only now bishop to d2 with check. We have king f2. Now comes the bishop to c6. So you don't have the bishop here as a target, but bishop to c6 is is a move that gives white a winning advantage. Unfortunately for Eline, here you want to play rook h to g8 or rook d to g8 and harass that queen, but still the position is better for white. However, after bishop to c6, the position is completely winning for white, but again, you have to play it very precisely. So queen to g7, of course we go after the f7 pawn. Luckily the king moved, so we can block with the rook, and now a brilliant move by Vyacheslav, rather the only winning move in the position, that is rook to b8. Now the point being, if rook captures on b8, well, we're just going to capture on f7, and after king to d8, we're just going to checkmate the black king check here, and the queen to e7 will be checkmate. So how can Eline get out of this? You can capture the rook, but also if you just allow rook captures on f8, you're going to be down a rook. Here she played queen to a2. And this is a very tricky idea, saying that if you capture my rook here, or with the other rook, I'm just going to play bishop to e3 with check. And now after the king moves and you don't really have all that many squares, queen to f2 with check, king g4, and now even rook to h4 with checkmate. So there are many such ideas in the position. So instead, after this queen to a2 move, king to g3 was played. And now how do you continue? Bishop to e3. Again, very tricky, as you again might get checkmated, king g4, rook to h4. So rook to f1, the only winning move for white. So Ikonnikov playing very the only moves basically here. And now queen to a3, retreating and defending that rook here. And now Ikonnikov played everything perfectly, and now he just has to finish the game. But it's not all that clear. How do you finish the game? Yes, you are you know, winning, and the engine screams that you are winning, but in time trouble it's hard to find a winning move here. Just to give you an example of how difficult the position is, bishop captures on a6 is the engine's all-time favorite move, and of course the engines, you know, they love their pawns, but in this kind of a crazy position, who would play bishop captures on a6? So one of the moves that actually wins the position is bishop to g6, but it's still not all that easy in time trouble, because you have to give up your queen temporarily. For example, rook h to g8, bishop captures on f7 now, and after rook captures, f captures on g7, attacking the rook, and okay, now it's clear that white will win the game. For example, rook captures on b8, we're going to play bishop captures, and we get another queen into the game. However, that's it seems that it's easier said than done. In the game, Ikonnikov tried queen captures on h8. Seems like it's similar, and that white will be able to, well, get to this pawn, try to advance this pawn. Also, he will try to advance this pawn, but it's not as clear. So rook captures on h8, rook captures on h8, and now the position is pretty much winning for Ikonnikov, unless Roebers plays one move that gives her the advantage. So feel free to pause the video and try to find this elusive idea in this difficult position while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting this incredible idea. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is bishop captures on d4. That's the move Ikonnikov missed when he played this giving up the queen for two rooks idea. And now the problem is, if the bishop is captured, well, then queen to d6 check. And after king h3, we pick up the bishop on d4, attack this bishop, attack the f6 pawn. And after, let's say, rook to d1, we can just pick up the pawn. We don't even care because there are no good discoveries on the king. For example, bishop captures on a6, we're going to play king e7. And now black is much better here, or rather black is winning here. As well, the coordination between white's pieces isn't all that impressive, and the white king is kind of boxed in here on h3. So that's one problem. Another one is, well, you just can't capture on d4. Bishop to f4 was played, but now just the bishop captures on f6. So just grabbing two of these very important pawns just like that really will make it troublesome for white to win this. So rook to h7, now king e7, defending the pawn, bishop to g6 now, but now bishop to e8. So everything is nicely defended. We have rook to b1, going for rook to b7 check, but now e5. Starting to advance the pawn, also asking what do you do with the bishop here. So bishop c1, attacking the queen. The bishop will also be needed in guarding the c1 square, as it's the queening square for the c-pawn. Queen back to d6, and now rook to b7 should be played here, but Ikonnikov first plays bishop captures on f7. He will win the piece back, of course, but it's just way worse than rook to b7. So here bishop captures was played, rook to b7 check, king to e6, and now rook b captures on f7. But now white will have some problems here. Queen to d1, attacking the bishop here, bishop to a3, and now comes queen captures on a4. And now, okay, you're threatening to win the bishop here, so bishop back to c1, but this bishop to c1 is actually a mistake. Rook to b7 was the only way to continue this with white. It's a very scary position, but at least it gives you some fighting chance. For example, if you capture the bishop, then rook b6 check, and black might be in some trouble. For example, if you go king to f5, we're going to play rook to f7, and now, well, it's actually black who has to be worried about getting checkmated. But okay, it's still a dead draw if both sides play correctly. So here bishop to c1 was played, but now queen to a1, attacking the bishop, bishop to e3, and now queen to e1 with check. So now you either lose the bishop or you have to give up control of the queening square. So bishop f2, now comes queen to d2, and now rook to c7. You can play something like rook h6 to go after the bishop, because the queen here guards the h6 square, also one of the problems for white. So rook to c7 was played, but now c2, preparing c1 queen. Here rook to c6 check was played, king to f5, and it was in this position on move 47 that Vyacheslav Ikonnikov resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. There's no way to increase any pressure. You can give one small check, but after king to g6, there are no more moves you can play. Whatever you play, c1 queen is coming. And other than that, there really isn't anything he can play. So really impressive game. It was hard fought by both of them, and then when the game reached time trouble, then well, he who had or she who had the strongest nerves in this case wins the game. There's also a nice photo of this from the article by Peter Dodgers that you can check out. Here's the photo of them playing in the final round. There you can see the starting position. The queen is already on d3, and also here are the final standings. Here you can see that she won the tournament with 6.5 points ahead of everyone else, whereas Ikonnikov, who is in 9th place, finished on 5 points. If he had won the final game, he would tie for first with Oliver Stork and I cannot pronounce this, but we're gonna go with Kaufman. But yeah, you can see that Eline Roebers is untitled. She does not have a title, and she left some very strong title players behind, a couple of FIDE masters, an international master, and a grandmaster. So very nicely done. A wonderfully fought game, and we'll see what she has in store for the chess world. Well, after this tournament, as she's only 15, already rated almost 2400. So we'll see what happens. We'll be following the progress. So yeah, that's the game. Thank you guys for suggesting it. Hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Jonathan Maista, David Hertz, Robert Stadelman, Benjamin Bryant, and Ryan Urban for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check two of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon. Continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions, such as this one, and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.